So I had a really requested video topic, and this is factoring. I probably should have stated this before, because factoring is a very important part of geometry. But yeah, we're just gonna go into factoring. We're gonna be factoring quadratics. I don't really know about trinomials in geometry. As to really more algebra too. So we're gonna go not only into factoring. I may even show a little quadratics. I may even use a quadratic. No, completing the square. So I'm gonna go through 3 examples with 6. I'm gonna go through a lot of examples actually. So let's start with the first example. Example 1: x squared minus 4 equals 0. So this is actually a very special product. When we are given a quadratic in the form a squared minus b equals 0, we can factor this out to square root a minus square root b times square root a plus square root b. So that's how we could factor out this first quadratic. Oops. Now we're just plugging in our values. Man, why can't I get it to work? So our a term, by the way, I probably should say this before we go on. When we are given a quadratic, it's going to be in the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c, the set of a, b, and c, is a part of the set of all real numbers. I mean, that's not even a right notation. I would honestly be very upset. But, okay, if you don't know what this means, this is just saying a, b, and c are real numbers. I mean, I guess we can have ix squared plus ix. I don't really know that to be that intuitive though, because then it's just simplified. That x. Okay, yeah, that actually doesn't almost help you. I mean, it's helps them try to help you. But that I almost just wrote out another quadratic. So now we plug in our terms in. So here is our a term, this is our b term, and our c term 0. So our a term is x squared. And the square root of anything squared is just itself. So this is going to be x minus. So think of the minuses 4 as separate. Don't think of this as negative 4. Think of it as just 4. So x minus square root 4. And we know the square root of 4 is 2. Now we have x plus square root 4, which is 2. Now we're going to be using the zero product property. Zero product property states any terms. So these two stuff in parentheses are terms. Any term, when you have 2 or more terms set equal to 0, you can just set each individual term to 0. So now you're setting x minus 2 equals 0. That says x equals 2. X plus 2 equals 0. X equals negative 2. So that's your first value of x. So we have, now let's deal with x squared minus 4x. So when we are given with multiple x's, first thing you see, can we factor out the x? And in this case, we can. Oh yeah, by the way, this is set equal to 0 because we're actually solving for x. If it doesn't say equal to 0, then assume you're just factoring it. But anyways, there is a common factor of x. So we can pull these factors out and we get x times x minus 4, 0. And we distribute each individual, and we distribute the 0 to each individual term. X equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, x equals 4. Hey. Now our third one, we're adding a new term, and this is going to be our c term. So I just added a negative 5. Oh yeah, I want to point something out. If you're asked to graph this, remember this is actually our y-intercept, if you're curious. That's because there's no x term. So when we set x to 0, what exactly are you setting the equal for the c term? Nothing. So it just stands alone. So how will we factor something like this? So what we are gonna do, this is complicated, but it's really important you understand this. You are gonna be finding the factors of c term, which add to b term. You're finding the factors of the c term, negative 5. So so this term is actually negative 5, if you're curious. You treat that as negative 5. Wow. Is it really going to be so complicated just to erase? So you find the factors of -5, and you see which factors of that add up to -4. So let's list out the factors of -5. -5, just 1 and -5 and -1 and 5. Now you're going to add these two together, see what they equal. So -1 plus 5 is 4. 1 plus -5, -4. The b term is -4, so these are our terms. And now we're going to fill out a chart like this. X equals 0. So these are our two terms for the zero product property. And now you're just plugging in our values. So these are both x minus a term. So first things first. No, sorry, these are both x plus the terms. So first things first, we're going to be plugging in each of the factors. So we're going to be plugging in the factors 1 and -5. So x plus 1, so that turns into x plus 1. Then x plus -5. There is no double signs, so this just turns into x minus 5. So now you have your factored expression, x plus 1, x minus 5. So let's set it equal to 0. X plus 1 equals 0, x equals -1, x minus 5 equals 0, x equals 5. You just factored a trinomial. So for our last factoring example, before we get to completing square, we have a bigger c term. Squared minus x minus 6. So I'll actually give you another example. So I actually want to deal with another example first. So if you're given something like this, first check, can you factor out all of these terms? And you can. You can factor out terms 2 from each of the terms. So 2x squared minus 4x 5 equals 0. So with this, all you gotta say is 2 doesn't equal 0, and that will get rid of the 2, and you are left with x squared minus 4x minus 5, which we just did. So I'm not gonna write that out, because I'm lazy. Now, for our last one, before we go to completing the square, which I want to take it relatively quick, I'll give 2 examples, which will probably be the exact same examples. So, this is our next one, 2x squared minus x minus 6. So, what you're trying, how do I pause? What you're trying to do is see which terms from the a and b term add up to the c term. Which terms from the A and C term add up to the B term? I'm actually dying. So 2, -6. And this term is -1, by the way. So 2, x squared. So this is going to be x and 2x. In -6, there are multiple possibilities. 1, -6, -1, 6, 2, -3, -2, 3. You're just trying to see which of these add up. So you have 2x squared, and that only has one term, so 2xx. All you're going to be doing is multiplying them by the other terms from the c term, and then adding them to get the b term. So why don't we go through? So first one, let's try 1, -6. This turns to x, and we get -12 plus x, which, well, we know that's equal to -1. So we can already eliminate these. Because they're Now let's try these. So 2, -3. And don't forget, you can always change the order of the numbers. So this is going to be 2x. This is -6x plus 2x, 4x. And we're going to also see what happens when you can't factor it properly. And I could actually bring this into completing the square. Now we can swap around. 2x. So 2x minus 3x. 2x times 2x, x times -3. This becomes 4x, and this becomes the -3x. And what does that equal? X. That's so close to -1. So what if we just try to swap around the negative signs? Oh my god. So what if we wanted to swap around the negative signs? So let's try that now. Okay? No, okay, I'm sorry, I did it wrong. So now we have 2x, x, 3, and negative 2x. These are the factors from the a term. These are the factors of the c term. Sorry, there's no x here. And we're multiplying them all together. We're multiplying them together to see if they add up to the b term. So 2x times negative 2, x times 3. So we have 3x and negative 4x. So let's add these together. Will that equal negative x? And this is our b term. So now that we have our terms, the way you're going to write these out is, first, you're going to write out both of the x terms, both of the terms from the a term out in front, and then to know which goes with which, you basically take the one that you didn't multiply together. Sorry, that's confusing, but we know we multiplied 2x times negative 2. So, and we didn't multiply 2x times 3, like in the case of the terms we have. So that means we're going to be plugging in 3 for 2x. And same thing, we multiplied x times 3, so that means we're taking negative 2. Now we're just setting this equal to 0. 2x equals negative 3, x equals negative 3 over 2, and x minus 2 equals 0. And these are our values of x. So now let's use completing the square. So we have x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. So what we're trying to do is turn this into a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial basically factors out into one squared term. So it would basically factor out the x minus a squared, for example. So the first thing we got to do is isolate the c term away from the a and b term. So now we get x squared minus 4x equals 5. Now we're going to be turning this into a perfect square trinomial. So we take the b term, turn it negative, and divide by... No, sorry, we don't turn the b term negative. We take the b term divided by 2 and square it. So negative 4 divided by 2 squared, that's negative 2 squared, which is 4. So now we got to plug this into both sides of the equation. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. 4 plus 4, x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 9. That's a 4. My handwriting is like dying. Now, we can factor this out really easily. We don't even have to look. I mean, we don't even got to think. So, a perfect square trinomial factors out to the b term divided by 2. So, our b term divided by 2 from the original equation is negative 2. This factors out the x minus 2 squared, which equals 9. Take the square root of both sides. 2 equals... x minus 2 equals plus or minus. Whenever you're taking the square root of stuff in relation and solving for a variable, you have to have the plus or minus sign. Now we're just adding it to both sides. X equals 2 plus or minus 3. X equals 5. X equals negative 1. Yay. So, x squared minus 4x minus 10. So, when we have something like this, it's a little harder, but it's not impossible. So, the first thing we do is always isolate as usual. 2x squared minus 8x equals 10. But this time, when the a term is greater than 1, we're going to factor out the a term, if possible. If it's not, then you really shouldn't be using completing a square. But since we can factor out the 2 from the a and b terms, we factor that out and get 2x squared minus 8x, 10. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated, so please bear with me. Okay, first one says x squared minus 4x. Now we're going to basically solve this like now we're basically turning this into a normal perfect square trinomial, but there's a little different when we do to this side, which this is honestly the most confusing part. So negative 4 over 2 squared, that's negative 2 squared, that's 4. So we add 4 to this side. But on the other side, you add 4 times this. You add 4 times that. That's what's confusing. So what you're really adding is 8. So you add 8 4 2 times 4. They get x squared minus 4x plus 4 times 2 equals 18. Now, this factors out to x minus 2 squared multiplied by 2 equals 18. And when we have something like this, we divide each side by 2. We get x minus 2 squared equals 9. You know what this is starting to look like? X equals 2 plus or minus 3. X equals 5, negative 1. So that's how you factor and use completing this square. If you have any questions, post them in the comments below. And I'll also make more examples. I'll try at least. So yes. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to put out. I did make a little worksheet on geometry. So if you're like not sure if you go to geometry yet, you should probably look at the worksheet, which I'll post soon, and like fill it out, see what you get, and if it's a good enough score, then just go to geometry. If you think you need more work on stuff, especially factoring, then go back and review some Algebra 1 topics like this. So that's going to be the end of this video. Post any comments you have in the comments below. And yeah.